2022 was a year. A lot happened. I finally uploaded some YouTube videos. Not a whole lot, but hey, I'm still trying my best. I officiated a wedding for some of my best friends. Finally went to therapy because I'm a dude and I'm toxic as hell. And oh yeah, I got married. But Tears of the Kingdom got delayed too, so I guess you have to have some bad with a good. 2022 was actually a fantastic year for me, and also for video games. While some games like Zelda and Starfield got pushed back to 2023, this year was still stacked. There were games for everyone to enjoy. Just as I did last year, here are all the games I felt like I've beaten or gotten as much out of it as I've wanted. Again, giving you a complete list of all the games I've completed and how I feel about them so you can get an idea of what I like and what kind of dumb gamer I am. As a note, the ranking numbers are pretty superficial till like the top 15 or so. That's why I got tiers. And if you want to yell at me or for some of my thoughts or placements of certain games, please do that in the comments below or at me on Twitter. Also, like this video, that would seriously help me out. Like, comment, and subscribe, the 3 tenets of any YouTuber, I guess. Alright, in the spirit of my favorite Mario character.
Name? Mario. Last name? Mario.
Let's go! It's not really fair to rank this game last on my list, but technically, we won't ever be able to play this version of Overwatch again. Origin Editions was a lot of fun to play, and even with my limited playtime with the game, again, I just started playing during this past summer. It's so deep with stacked heroes and fun matches. Too bad this game turned into a live service, but maybe for the best? Ooh, this was a game that I really wanted to like, and I did until the absolutely yucky controls hit my breaking point. This isn't a bad game per se, but when this game was good, it was so good. You are climbing and stabbing into giant beasts. The best thing Shadow of Colossus does well is emulating the feel of fighting these ugly monsters as a small and fragile human. The sensation of holding on to dear life as you scale up the side of these huge monsters is so awesome. But I've never experienced so much frustration at the same time too because of the controls, or at least the perception that the controls were failing me. I get the intention of having these kinds of gameplay, but ooh, I hated it and it doesn't work for me. Also, the story was kind of okay. That's it. I tried to play some classic games I've never played before, and for this I chose this one, and well, I would like to think if I played this when it came out, I would have liked it a lot more. Psychonauts is a pretty decent platformer, especially from a studio not named Nintendo. The obvious special sauce of this game is the humor. There are a lot of delicious jokes here and there, and the writing is full of charm. The characters serve their roles in the story pretty well, and Roz is just such a cool little dude. I guess what pegs this game down for me is the constant interruption while playing. You take a few steps after getting out of a cutscene, another one occurs. It's not a deal breaker, but when it breaks the gameplay flow consistently, no amount of wit or jokes can help out with that annoyance. This is another game where I feel weird about ranking. I try to be much more serious about my playthrough of this game than I've ever had before, and while I did accumulate a boatload of bells from manipulating the turnip market to speed my way to make the island better, I just fizzled out. I will say that playing through this, I realized, wow, the Switch is really slow and showing its age. Loading up stuff and connecting to the internet feels like a crawl with one arm and one leg. Also, some of the playability factor like the animations or switching between tools is much more hindering than I remember. I think it's a fine game, though it's just not for me. This is gonna be my most controversial take. Stray isn't that great of a game. It's a pretty okay one. I've heard the theory about how the only reason Stray is hyped up so much is because of cat people. Listen, I'm a cat dad, and I can tell you that Stray is a fine game, but it's not one of the best games that came out in 2022. This is definitely a unique title where you play as the world's smartest cat doing some complicated tasks to save the city stuck on night mode. Allowing the players to play as the cat and do things like knocking over stuff, napping whenever you see a comfy spot, and tricking robots to do your bidding is a joy, but Stray is a pretty basic game that's polished really well, and there's nothing wrong with that. Portal is one of the games on this list that I've played before, and it's still a blast to play through. GLaDOS is one of the best characters ever made, and if you haven't played this game at this point, shame on you. Shredder's Revenge is a game where I don't necessarily get the hype, but I understand it. It's a nostalgia trip in the best way possible with unmistakable beat-em-up mechanics. Since I didn't grow up with the classic Turtle games back in the arcade and Super Nintendo era, I don't have any fond feelings for this game, but Shredder's Revenge does what it does well. Plus, it's a great party game, especially if you're playing with some friends. I'm counting these games as the same because they're basically complements to each other. Pokemon Puzzle League and Challenge are the other games I played before, and that was over 20 years ago, and oh my god, yeah, that's it. I'm getting older. Identity Crisis going full on. But anyway, yeah, I grew up with them, and I switched off between the 64 and the Game Boy versions if I was playing at home or on the go, which was pretty neat as a 90s variant of a Switch. The 64, being the most complete version, is gratifying and feels a lot more vibrant and hectic due to being able to see your opponent's progress. The Game Boy Color is stripped down, but still a microdose of that satisfaction from getting combos and clearing big number blocks. This was my Tetris back in the day, and yeah, I got nostalgia for these games. This is a really cute isometric Zelda Souls-like game. The light-hearted tone on the concept of harvesting souls works really well, and the combat is engaging. It also has the best elements from Zelda and Souls, where new tools will help you unlock new areas and secrets, and the dodge roll, of course. This is a pretty solid game, and while it does look cute, it's still a challenging game as well. This game was the most surprising for me. I didn't expect to enjoy this game as much as I did, and as you could probably guess, I played Requiem as well. But for specifically Innocence, I got engaged with the characters and story. Gameplay mechanics was simple and intuitive enough to not be a distraction, though at times it did feel like enemy encounters were a little unfair. My one huge gripe with the game is that it felt a little dragged out, but I'll expound on that later. Star Wars Squadrons is the best serious arcadey game, if you know what I mean. I was a little hesitant at first with a strictly cockpit first-person view, but Motive Studios did an amazing job creating a super immersive experience. My wife would make fun of me, especially with how I move my body or shake my head in a certain way because of me reacting to incoming fire from the TIE fighters. Story is alright, I guess, and multiplayer was fun, but the game is pretty bare bones once you finish a short campaign and get a few hours worth of playing time in multiplayer. Naughty Dog is good at making action games, and Lost Legacy is another solid entry in the Uncharted series. Not a full-fledged 20-hour game or so, but still has everything you would want in these kinds of games. The action is fast-paced, the set pieces are detailed and lively, and the characters and stories are engaging. If you are looking to scratch that action-adventure itch, this game will do it. Eastward is one of the few games that works just based on vibes alone. This game is a combination of Zelda gameplay, Earthbound tone and aesthetic, and The Last of Us story arc, where the writing and visuals really carry the game. The gameplay is really simplistic and doesn't involve much beyond swing your sword, frying pan, and solve basic but also repetitive puzzles. The game's story and gameplay does drag, especially once you master the skills and you get further along in the story arcs, but the main draw is the world and the characters you encounter. Playing Eastward is for the world building and talking to as many NPCs as possible after every little progression to the story. Its art direction is also such a big treat that it complements the game so well. Just like how Lost Legacy is an extension to Uncharted 4, Miles Morales expands on what got introduced in the 2018 Spider-Man game, but now you're playing as a titular character. Miles has a different moveset and abilities than Peter Parker, which helped this game differentiate itself from the original. Honestly, the best part of the game is still swinging through New York City now in the snow. Actually, you know what? This game was the most surprising to me. I haven't really played reading games in a long time, mostly because I don't want to read books when I game, but Citizen Sleeper is so engrossing with its writings and theme. The game utilizes this turn-based mechanic where you have a limited number of actions you can do per cycle. There are some critical past story arcs you have to be a part of, but for the most part, you're just helping people out and working side gigs to try to make money as you try to deal with hunger and this body breakdown condition. The game plays out as a life sim where the goal is just to survive in this space city, and while that is the name of the game, the real magic is the friends you make along the way. The visuals aren't as eye-catchy as something like Cyberpunk 2077, but the narrative that unfolds is so intriguing. The prose just sucks you in, and the suspense of what would happen next delivers such a unique and satisfying sensation, especially as you complete these side quests. Hats off to the one-person studio Jump Over the Age for making such a cool and sweet game. Hi y'all, my name is Thisway, and even though I'm a huge Miyazaki fanboy, I've never played Dark Souls. I'm a loser was something I used to say before this year, and well, not anymore. Dark Souls is a special game. Yeah, I may not revere it as much as Dark Souls 3 since that game was my entry point to the Soulsborne world, but I can still give it the respect that it deserves. I gained a new level of understanding and appreciation for this game, especially in its role getting From Software on the map of excellency. I got a video on the way for my complete thoughts on the original Dark Souls, but something I can say is that this game has had a huge effect on video games the same way Super Mario 64 has had back in the 90s. Choice-based games are pretty relaxing to me, except the part where I have to make a choice with heavy consequences, but when that doesn't happen, it's pretty relaxing. Life is Strange True Colors is not necessarily a relaxing game though. There are many choices that have drastic effects on how the rest of the game will turn out, and sometimes those choices are a bit uncomfortable to make. Where it shines though is how it presents such a deep and personal story about reconnecting with loved ones and dealing with loss and trauma, while also having a mysterious villain seeping into the foreground. Definitely worth a playthrough. Doom is a video game's video game. It's a first-person shooter with amazingly smooth gunplay, the art direction and environments are grotesque and deliciously evil, and the story doesn't get in the way of itself and lets you kill demons with some big guns. This game is probably everything a gamer would want, and it does everything so well. Definitely the best pure first-person shooter I've played in a long time. Hey, speaking of first-person shooters, we got another one right here. Okay, so Halo Infinite started off pretty rough. Both multiplayer and single player were missing staples of the Halo series like standalone Slayer mode and co-op, as well as lacking in content, like only having 2 maps for multiplayer. You see, 343 and Microsoft opted to turn Infinite into a live service game somewhere late in the development cycle, which led to having sparse content and release, but also since this was their first live service game, seasons that should have been released in a timely manner kept getting delayed. So yo, that's a lot of bad stuff. Why did I rank this game so high compared to others? Well, it's freaking Halo, and a really great one too. The saving graces for this game for me are co-op, the grappling hook, and the open world. The evolution from linear campaign into an open world was done really well. The grappling hook is so cool and useful as a traversal tool, almost in the same way Breath of the Wild lets you climb anywhere, and I've been waiting to play co-op with this game when it came out, so that was one of the most fun I've had in a while, and that's probably a lot to do with my nostalgia for the series. So yeah, sue me. This game was still a lot of fun. Hopefully 343 continue to elevate this game to its full potential, because right now it still needs some work, but it's really close to what you would expect in a Halo game. So, I'm not gonna spoil the stories between Innocence and Requiem, but oh man, do I feel bad for Amicia. She goes through so much, and trauma, and the death. I can't imagine the PTSD she'll have. Anyway, yeah, Requiem basically took the formula that worked in the first one and tweaked some of the mechanics here and there to create much more fast-paced engagements. It still has the stealth moments and avoiding the rats, but Requiem implements new tools and strategies to get through those encounters. The spirit of the original with its characters and story turns also shine here too, with new characters entering the fray and the stakes getting raised way past the boiling point. Now, I also think Requiem has the same issue as Innocence. It kinda overstays its welcome. There is an objective where you have to reach an island, but it takes like 5 or 6 chapters to get there. I do think Requiem handled the pacing a lot better than in Innocence, mostly to it being more streamlined story-wise. But put that all to the side, Requiem is still an amazing follow-up to the original. Also, as a side note, I've been enjoying these 2-part games instead of trying to stretch into a trilogy. Hopefully that becomes a trend. Another 2 games in one combo. I never got the chance to play 3D World, and listen, a 3D Mario game from Nintendo, you know, sign me up. Nintendo is just so great at making these platformers, they probably could make one in their sleep, and it would be better than 90% of the games that come out that year. 3D World takes a different approach versus previous 3D Mario titles by taking the elements of a 2D games and adding that Z-axis. It's still a pretty fun game, and one thing Nintendo is great at is introducing new ideas while fully realizing them at the same time. Bowser's Fury, a kind of bite-sized version of the 3D Mario game, envisions the idea of an open world Mario game. I wouldn't call this game experimental, but I would say it's a nice little prototype of the future for mainline Mario games. Whatever it turns out to be, I'm excited, and also I can't wait to see my favorite version of Mario on the big screen soon.
Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
I feel really weird about liking this game. I go on Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube, and people are all just tearing Overwatch 2 down. And you know what? Activision Blizzard do deserve it, but I really like Overwatch 2. Not to say that I didn't understand the original, but with this one, I really got what Overwatch is all about. There are some rough spots for sure. Roku is still a mess with wait times for tank and DPS, and the need to offer bonus credits for support or all roles. Characters definitely felt unbalanced from the launch, and the meta of certain heroes always getting played can be annoying, but my enjoyment of this game was getting my friends together and either obliterating our opponents in such a cool and overwhelming style, or we sizzle out and get stomped on. Literally, those are the only 2 outcomes to every single match. Yeah, matchmaking kind of sucks still, but it's still enjoyable, especially when you got highlights where you feel like you're a pro at this game. You know what? This is the most surprising game of the year for me. Yep, this is the one. This is the one right here. Taking what is a simple concept of a single stick autogun roguelike and creating a deep and entertaining game out of that is an achievement. Vampire Survivors is pure fun and chaos. There are a lot more than meets the eye with the amount of secrets you can discover and cool characters and weapons you can unlock. I'm not a huge fan of roguelikes, mostly because I feel like they're made to not make you feel too powerful, but Vampire Survivors lets you become a god tier character, mowing down thousands and thousands of chump change skeletons. My favorite moment is just leaving the controller alone while your character is disintegrating these fools on their own. If you feel stuck though, just focus on outputting as much damage as possible in the beginning, and then the game will open up for you. And the best part of this game is there's no vampires. Seriously, this game is arguably the best value of any game on this list, with only being $5 on Steam and free on mobile. You cannot beat this deal. I said a lot already about Horizon Forbidden West, and I still mean it. It's a fantastic game that's polished really well and probably has the best graphics of any game that got released this year. Its greatest weakness is the feeling that it's not a new game. Again, I love this game, and it has a pretty special place in my heart now, being the subject of my most popular video that I have so far. Sure, the ranking for this game was affected by my sentimental value for it, but hey, that's the point of these dumb lists. If you want a well-made game that allows you to take down robot dinosaurs, this is the game for you. Also, yes, I know you can change the item pickups in the options menu. I don't need to get reminded 20 times. I made a video about this game and how much it meant to me. Long story short, Death Stranding can be a stressful, relaxing game depending on your playstyle. If you like Kojima, you'll probably like this game. If you like esoteric gameplay, you'll probably like this game. If you like being lost in a world where everything is weird and doesn't make any sense whatsoever, you'll probably like this game. It's not for everyone, but it's something that I really enjoyed, and I at least recommend just to try it out. Best Indie Game of the Year. That's it. That should be the subtitle for this game because it was good as hell. Tunic, Best Indie Game of the Year. Well, if this was my number 2, you probably have an idea what's my number 1. We'll get to that. Ragnarok builds on the foundation of the 2018 God of War, and wow, it's an incredible experience. You get to fight Thor, travel through some amazing realms, and have a chance to talk to Pro ZD and engage with some of the best writing ever done in a video game. And that's just the first 10 hours of the game. Probably 8 hours of it being fully optional. The other 48 hours was me really digging into these side quests and fully exploring almost everything this game has to offer. There are entire levels that are 100% optional, but it's so rewarding to go through them and really explore every nook and cranny. The combat is more or less the same flow as the 2018 version, so it feels familiar but complex in a good way. There are more varieties for enemies and bosses. The animation for these fatalities are so satisfying, and the writing, ooh, listen, there were moments where I was tearing up in a video game. The story is so top notch, and these are some of the most multi-dimensional characters ever coded onto a game disc. For a game so amazing in the most crucial parts, there are some misses. The menu UX is and traveling through this open world game can be a bit of annoyance, especially with the backtracking of some of these side quests. Now, minor spoilers coming up, so skip ahead if you don't want to know. A somewhat lackluster aspect are the times where you play as Atreus, the classic playing as a second character trope in video games. Personally, I enjoy the story elements, but the combat felt a little neutered, which I totally understand from a design aspect. This can be a hit or miss for people, and for me it was somewhere in the middle. But I will say that this moment right here, transitioning from Atreus to Kratos,
Father! Off your back. Help Freya. I will draw them to me.
ooh, it was so badass. God of War Ragnarok is the prime example when you have everyone on the team. The animators, the writers, designers, directors, QA, engineers, voice actors, programmers, everyone else working at the absolute highest level you can get. This is a game firing on all cylinders to the destination of greatness. Ragnarok is an absolute must-buy and a must-play game. You gotta do it. You gotta do it. And now, for my number 1. Back in 2017, I played Breath of the Wild, and I felt like a kid. I've been trying to experience that feeling again. And Elden Ring did it for me. I love Elden Ring so much I bought it 3 times and platinumed it twice. One on the PS5 and the other on Xbox. And I poured over 200 hours across all versions. Elden Ring is a kaiju of a video game. It feels endless, where there's always a boss to conquer, a dungeon to explore, and a secret to unfold. The absolute best time to play this game was when it came out, when there wasn't a guide yet to know what to do, where your instincts guided you to kill it, fight to the last ounce of health against god-tier bosses, and take an elevator 10,000 leagues below the sea to traverse an entire world underground. The second best time to play Elden Ring is right now. I can't compliment this game enough. It's so huge and so full of enemies and mysteries and intrigue. It's hard to ignore it all. There are some elements that aren't great or good, like multiplayer setup and the difficulty spike after a certain point, but those seem so trivial against the super fantastical magnificence of a game. This feels like an impossible piece of art, a once-in-a-generation kind of game that will shake up the landscape of future games to come. I got a big old video planned to go more in depth on this game, but let me just say, Elden Ring is one of the most sublime pieces of interactive art ever created.